Hello and welcome. My name is Abby, and in this video I am taking you along as we complete some gardening chores in my garden. It was early morning because I was meant to water the previous day, but I had not because life got busy. So now I woke up nice and early to ensure that I watered the garden. But in addition to watering, I also had quite a few other jobs to do. I had some pruning to do for roses, salvias, tomatoes, alyssum, and many more. I also had to tidy my willow herbs. They were looking a bit rough. And I also had some harvesting to do, as well as checking plants for any pest pressure. I also had one heuchera I wanted to repot. So I had already watered by the time I decided to film. I'm not the most consistent when it comes to watering, but I do try to water every fourth day. So for example, I'll water on a Monday, skip 2 days, and then water on a Thursday. But this particular day, I had missed that and I was actually on the 5th day. That's why watering was a priority and I just came out and watered before I even thought about recording. The other things I guess to say about the watering is I water deeply and I water at the base of the plant. There are some exceptions where, for example, if I am pressed for time, I will prioritize my vegetables over the plants in the ground, as in the ornamental plants. I will also prioritize containers over anything that's in the ground, including vegetables. Sometimes I have to water more frequently, and this is for little seedlings. I haven't spoken about them yet, but if you look around, I'll try and point them out. I've got a few rudbeckia seedlings. Over to pruning. I pruned my echinacea off camera. It was essentially growing into the sweet corn, and I did not want it to impact the sweet corn, so I trimmed it back a little bit. I had also started pruning my sweet corn off camera. With sweet corn, I wanted just one stem. I did not want the side shoots, so I was removing all the side shoots. I don't know how this sweet corn is going to come out because some of it has already started tasseling a little bit. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I pruned the roses just above a set of 5 leaves. I think that's the general guidance that's given. However, if the spent bloom is amongst other flowers, I just nip that off. It just snaps off easily. I can also use pruners, but I can always snap it off. I've been doing it for a while now. So that's essentially what I do for the rose. I do check for black spot, and if there are any leaves that are affected, I also take those out. Next, I moved on to my salvia. I did not Chelsea chop the salvia previously, so it was growing quite a bit, but the blooms were not blooming as they were in the beginning, so I decided to prune that as well. And I think I went about a third and just cut everything off. I did this last year as well, and they came out lovely. Towards the end of the summer, they were still in bloom, so I think I'll get the same this year. Next was my alyssum. I do like the look of the daisies falling over the lawn, but I did need to remove the spent blooms, and I just decided to chop the flowers that were hanging over the lawn because they were not very supported and they were looking a bit straggly. And I began deadheading, just removing the spent blooms as well as some of the dead stems. And just a couple of days later, I checked on them. I'll probably pop a clip right here, and then you'll see that they looked so good. For the willow herbs, it was mostly just removing the dead leaves at the bottom of the plant. So I removed those, and I ended up later also removing the ones from the willow herbs across the wall. After cutting back some ivy, my bucket was looking quite full and it was time to empty it. Because I had quite a lot of daisies in there, I had some ivy, I decided just to put it in the main recycling green waste bin rather than putting it in the compost, because with the daisies, they would just then spread absolutely everywhere. I also removed some side shoots of my tomatoes. The thing with tomatoes, this is a task that goes on and on throughout summer really. As much as you are harvesting, the side shoots will continue coming up. So I started removing those side shoots. If you don't remove the side shoots, you end up with many different stems, and there's nothing wrong with that. You end up with more tomatoes, I actually think, and most times I just leave the side shoots. But usually I leave them when the plant is a bit bigger rather than when it's this small. So as you can see here, I just pinch out the side shoots and just check the plant over, just making sure that it is healthy. Speaking of healthy plants, let's move over to the kale. They looked healthy when I did my garden tour just like a week ago, but now not so much. Finally, I then went off to repot the heuchera. So I've got quite a few heucheras because I divided them last year. So they are all in different size containers. Some are in terracotta ones, some are in the nursery plant ones, the plastic ones, and they're all doing well. But every now and then I do put them in a bigger pot because they do grow quite well, heucheras do. So this particular one, just to show you, I pulled it out of its container and you can see from the roots that it was ready for a bigger container. So this is just a reminder that with your containers, even in summer, just keep an eye on them, because this particular heuchera, it would have needed more watering because the roots were more or less taking over. It probably wouldn't have done very well if I had not changed its soil. So I put it in a much bigger container. That's one thing that I've noticed with heuchera. With other plants, they recommend that you go up maybe one or two sizes container wise. But with heucheras, honestly, it could be the tiniest thing, and then I put it in a very big container. They somehow don't seem affected as long as there is a bit of drainage. They do like a bit of drainage, I've noticed. Another plant that was not doing very well here was my nasturtium. I did a video on my garden tour not long ago and I was showing it off. It was looking stunning, it had nice leaves, and I was saying that out of many seeds and many attempts, I'd ended up with this one nasturtium. Unfortunately, when I went to check it on this day, I think it had aphids on it. Ah, how sad, how sad. So it was looking rather poorly. Not long after, I'd had some ladybirds come to it, but it was looking very poorly. So I watered it because someone said if you water a plant, the aphids don't like well watered plants. I don't know how true that is. So I watered it anyway, and then I tried to wash some of the aphids off. There weren't many, so I don't understand how it looked so rough because it wasn't like tons of aphids, it was just a few. But anyway, as I said, I then saw a ladybug, which was good. So yeah, we'll see how the nasturtium goes. But I think with gardening, you just have to take it as it comes, because if you try to hold on to every plant, honestly, it can become a very stressful situation. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.